What's up, everybody? Isaac here with Civil Engineering Academy. Today we are going to do a series of podcast episodes, YouTube videos, I guess, of a deeper dive into the specifications for each depth exam, because I get many questions for people that are just starting this journey about becoming a civil engineer, and I want to be able to provide them from the ground level what they're getting into. So today we're going to talk about, what the exam is about. We'll cover what the specification is for each particular depth exam. And today I'm going to focus on the construction depth exam. So if you are taking the construction depth exam or you're considering taking the construction depth exam, this one's going to be for you. We're going to dive into what the exam is about. We'll dive into the specifications. We'll dive into the codes that are required. We'll talk about why I think you should take this or why I think you shouldn't take it. We'll also talk about the pass rates for this particular exam. And today is going to be construction. So it's all about construction. In the later ones, we'll do the rest of them. So if you are going to take construction, this one's for you. If you're not going to take it, maybe wait for the one that's coming out next time. So with that, we're excited to share this with you. If you need additional resources that are going to help you with the construction depth exam, maybe consider what we have at civilengineeringacademy.com, where we have practice exams, we have a course, we have all the good stuff. And definitely check out our YouTube channel, where we're always publishing problems for free for people. So definitely check that out too. Anyway, with that, let's get started. We're going to do a deep dive into the construction depth exam. So it's going to be coming up right after this. All right, first thing we're going to talk about is the exam itself. So the exam itself is a CBT exam. It's computer-based, right? It used to be paper-based. Everything is going computer-based, and it's been computer-based for about a year now. So that was all accelerated due to COVID, and here we are. So you got to register for that exam. It's offered year-round in different quarters. So each quarter you can take that exam, and the exam is actually scheduled for 9 hours. With that, you actually get 8 hours specific to taking the exam. It is still broken up, sort of. The spec has all of the material listed out in sequential order, but there is still a breakup of AM questions and PM questions. And the AM questions are the same among all the specifications, and that is the first 8 sections that we're going to go through in the specification. So that's what's going on with your exam. You also have a tutorial on how to take the exam, which they give you additional minutes for. I believe that's 8 minutes. And then they also have a scheduled 50-minute break in between the two halves of the exam, or close to the two halves of the exam. So with all of that added up, that's that 9-hour period. Comparing the old paper-based to the computer-based, it's still an 8-hour exam, and it's still a grind. So that's what's going on with the exam. I want to make sure we understand that first before we dive into anything else. Okay, the other thing I think is really important is knowing how much this thing's going to cost you. So right now, the exam itself is $375 that you will be making a checkout or paying via their website to the NCEES. Now, other things to keep in mind with that is that if you keep rescheduling and kicking this exam down the road, it's going to cost you money to reschedule. You don't want to do that. The exam's already expensive. You got to get a bunch of material to help you on this journey, and that's all expensive. So, we're trying to keep our costs down, right? I mean, we're engineers, we're tight. So watch out for that. Okay, and that should wrap up everything about the exam itself. If you have questions about that, feel free to email me, Isaac at civilengineeringacademy.com. But let's dive now into sharing my screen. Let's go do a quick review of the specifications. I'm going to talk about each area, and we'll also dive into the codes and standards that you will need to take this exam. So let's do that right now. All right, let's go ahead and do a deeper dive into the construction specifications. So if you go to the NCEES website, you'll go find the construction specifications. So these topics have not changed since April of 2015 when they were originally published. They made these effective on January 1 of 2022, So I find that interesting. So they might be due for an update, but right now they're just worried about getting all this stuff into CBT mode. So obviously the exam is closed book except for the reference handbook and the standards you're provided. So keep that in mind. Again, you have 9 hours to complete the exam, which includes what we already talked about, a tutorial and a break and the non-disclosure agreement. I find this interesting as well, that the exam uses both SI units and US customary units. And one of those things you want to keep in mind, and at least from feedback from many others, is that typically these exams are typically all in US units. But it's interesting that they put that on there, so they can ask stuff in SI units. And again, the exam's developed with questions that require a variety of approaches and methodologies, including design, analysis, and application. Meaning they can ask these in a variety of ways. If you do any research on the NCEES and you know these are CBT, you know that not all problems are necessarily multiple choice. The majority still are, but they can start throwing different types of problems at you, like drag and drop, fill in the blank, point and click, these alternative item types. So I'd encourage you to go to their website and go research what alternative item type problems are, and you can go check those out for yourself. So just keep that in mind. But for the majority of the exam, it's still multiple choice. You're probably only going to see a few that might be different than that. Okay, so we got that down. And the other thing is that the examples specified in this are not exclusive or exhaustive. So basically what they're saying is they can ask you anything they want, but typically they will stick to what they've got in the specification. So don't be too worried about that. All right, let's get a little closer here. So project planning, we're going to be dealing with quantity takeoff methods, cost estimating, project schedules, and activity identification and sequencing. You will have 4 to 6 questions related to that topic. The second one is means and methods, and that's construction loads, construction methods, as well as temporary structures. So 3 to 5 questions there. Third one is soil mechanics, dealing with lateral pressures, soil consolidation, effective and total stresses, bearing capacities, foundation settlement, and slope stability. 5 to 8 questions on that guy. Fourth is structural mechanics, 5 to 8 questions, which is your dead and live loads, trusses, bending moments, shear diagrams, axle loads, combined stresses, deflections, beams, columns, slabs, all found under structural mechanics. That's also, they include footings as well as retaining walls in that section. A bigger section is the hydraulics. This is section 5, hydraulics and hydrology section, 6 to 9 questions found there. This is one of the bigger ones that you're going to want to study up on. So that includes open channel flow, stormwater collection and drainage, so culverts, inlets, and gutter flow, storm characteristics like storm frequencies, runoff analysis, detention and retention ponds, pressure conduits, as well as the energy equation. So this, again, is a big topic. It's 6 to 9 questions, and one you're definitely going to want to hit. These are AM questions. The first 8 topics here are AM type questions. And what I mean by that is that the first 8 subjects here are the same among all specifications. So just keep that in mind. Geometrics, which is our fancy term for transportation. It used to be called transportation, and it used to be a lot bigger. So it's been reduced to just 3 sections. That's circular curves, vertical curves, and traffic volume, which is a variety of questions that deal with mix and flow and speed that you're dealing with in traffic scenarios. But as part of that, you've got 3 to 5 questions dealing with transportation or geometrics. So number 7 is materials. So you're going to deal with soil classification. So you're going to have a boring log interpretation, something that you might see. You get an inspection done, you have boring log and how to interpret those results. You have soil properties, which deal with strength, permeability, or phase relationships. You have concrete that you're going to be dealing with, structural steel, as well as material test methods and compaction. And that is 5 to 8 questions for materials. So that's a lot of geotech found within that, but they wrap that into materials. Then you have site development. So number 8 here is site development, 4 to 6 questions that you'll find on this one. And that deals with excavation and embankment, which is cut and fills. And then you have construction site layout and control, which is surveying. Then you have temporary and permanent soil erosion and control, so permits and sediment transports. Then you have impact of construction on adjacent facilities, which could be noise or blasting. And then you also have safety topics, which you will have to deal with as well. 4 to 6 questions with that. After those first 8 sections, then we dive into your depth section of choice. So specifically for what you are watching and going into with me is the construction. Now we're going to dive into more about a specific area. So number 9 is earthwork construction and layout again, only we're going deeper now, and that's excavation embankment. So more cut and fill problems, more complicated. Borrow pit problems, which people love, dealing with removing soil from its native area, taking it out, or it gets fluffy, putting it back and compacting it. You have to deal with site layout and control, which is surveying, earthwork and mass diagrams, haul distances, and site surface investigations. You have 5 to 8 questions dealing with earthwork, construction, and layout. So again, we're going deeper now into these subjects. Number 10 is estimating quantities and costs. So now we're going further into that. So quantity takeoff methods again, cost estimating, cost analysis for resources, as well as work measurement and productivity. How many labor, how many men you got to do a certain job, things of that nature. That's 5 to 8 questions there. Then you jump into construction operations and methods for number 11, which is 6 to 9 questions. So it's a larger topic. So lifting and rigging, crane stability, dewatering and pumping, equipment operations, as well as deep foundation installations. Number 12 is scheduling. There's 5 to 8 questions on that guy, and you're going to be dealing with construction sequencing, activity time analysis, CPM or critical path methods, resource scheduling and leveling, and time cost trade-offs. So everything to do with your PM topics, your project management topics. There's 5 to 8 questions within that one for scheduling. Number 13 is material quality control and production, 5 to 8 questions. This deals with material properties and testing, which can include soil, concrete, or asphalt. You also have welding and bolt installation, QA/QC processes, construction, concrete proportioning and placement, as well as concrete maturity and early strength evaluation, knowing the early strength of concrete. 5 to 8 questions for that section. We're almost there. Number 15 is temporary structures. 6 to 9 questions for that. You're dealing with construction loads and codes, formwork, false work, scaffolding, shoring, bracing, temporary support, anything that's temporary there to help build your structure, you're going to be dealing with. That's 69 questions, so there's quite a few questions there. And lastly, you've got health and safety. So you've got OSHA regulations, safety management statistics, and work zone and public safety. So these are all OSHA type questions, and there's 3 to 5 questions found within that. So that was a little bit of a dive into the spec and the exact problems and questions that they're going to ask you. I highly recommend grabbing a copy of the specifications because that is your guiding document as to what you need to study for your exam. So now let's dive into your codes. All right, diving into the codes. So effective beginning January of 2022, again, you're going to have the handbook at your disposal for the whole exam and the codes, although the codes will not necessarily be needed for the AM portion of the exam. You will still have access to them. Construction is one of the bigger ones for more codes required, and I highly recommend going and check out the NCES YouTube videos, which kind of give you a rundown of how the exam is presented, how it looks, as well as the environment that you're going into. We actually created a CBT exam simulator that will be live very shortly, so go check it out at civilengineeringacademy.com. But it will also give you that same look and feel, and we actually have access to those in our course. So if you want that, go check it out, civilpereviewcourse.com. So again, the handbook and design standards are going to be available to you for the entire exam, though design standards are not needed for the breadth portion. Okay, the other thing to note here is that solutions to the exam are based on these standards and codes. So these are the ones you're going to want to get, beg, borrow, steal, whatever you need to do to grab these, because these are the years or the versions that they are testing you on. So they might have newer versions already out, but this is what's on the exam, okay? So, and the NCES does not sell these things. You got to go find them. So the first one that you're going to be dealing with is the ACI 347R, which is your guide to formwork for concrete. This is 2014. So formwork that you're going to be dealing with. Then you have the ACI SP-4, which is formwork for concrete. Again, 2014, 8th edition. You have the AISC code, which is really the still Bible when it comes to this stuff. The 14th edition is what they're using, which came out in 2011. So you'll want a copy of that. You also need a copy of the ASCE 37-14, which is the design loads on structures during construction. You'll want the 2nd edition, 2015 for that. Then you have the CMWB, which is the Council for Masonry Wall Bracing. This standard is called the Standard Practice for Bracing Masonry Walls Under Construction. 2012 edition is what you want there. And then you have the MUTCD Part 6, which is the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices for Streets and Highways, Part 6. So you'll want to get that copy. You probably can get that at FHWA. And then we dive into what the CFR titles are. So CFR Title 29, which is the U.S. Department of Labor. They have these different parts that you're going to want to pull, which is 1903, 1904, and 1926. So 1903 deals with inspections and citations. 1904 deals with recording and reporting incidences. And 1926 is safety and health regulations. So we want to understand what they're asking here as part of OSHA. And the last one is the PCA EB001, which is Design and Control of Concrete Mixtures from Portland Cement Association. Those are things that you're definitely going to want to get. So beg, borrow, steal those, whatever you got to do to get those. Just kidding. I don't endorse stealing, but you're going to need a copy of those things so that you can really take this thing off and get going. So hopefully that was helpful. That was a quick dive into the spec as well as the standards that you will definitely need for this. All right, the last thing I really want to mention and talk about is the pass rate. So obviously we know, again, this is computer-based testing. Some other little highlights that the NCES has as they share their pass rates is that for these exams, the pass rates are typically updated in November. So I'll just read some of this, but it says some PE exams are administered year-round, which is our computer-based test. For these exams, pass rates are shown for the January through June or the June through December population, updated in July and January, respectively. So the latest ones here were updated in June. And if I dive down into the pass rates for construction, the volume of test takers was 786 people. That is not the most people that take this exam. So that's something to keep in mind, that it's not the highest volume of people. But the other thing, it's also not the least. So 786, the one that's least is geotech. But let's look at the pass rates. For first-time test takers, the pass rate for this is 49% during that time period. And repeat takers, there was only 33 people, and the pass rate was dropped down to 45%. So these are really low numbers. When this was paper-based, these would typically be in the 65 to 70% range. And now we're down to 49%, and I'm sure they want that higher. So, that's not great for a first-time test taker. And again, that kind of relates to the thing I talked about earlier, which is that a lot of people go into taking this exam and think that it's going to be the easier exam, and it's usually not. It's they test you on a broad topics, and they go deep into specific construction stuff. And a lot of people they feel like it's tricky in the way that they ask questions and word things. So just keep that in mind. I'm not here to discourage this exam by any means, because they're all difficult, but that's just what's going on with construction. As a repeat taker, it did drop down to 45%, which is also maybe disheartening. But I would say with both of these, don't lose hope and don't be discouraged. Your best foot forward on the first exam is going to be your best, but continue to march forward as you're taking the exam, and I promise you'll get through it. So I wanted to highlight that for the passing rates. Again, this was typically, around 50% for first-time takers, and it dropped down to 45% for repeat takers. I imagine hopefully those numbers come up to be more like the other exams, which is between 60 to 65% for first-time test takers, and then lower for repeat. So that was just the last group that took that test, and just something to keep in mind. So remember that as you're taking this exam. Definitely wanted to touch upon that. All right, so that was a deeper dive into the construction depth exam. For those that are considering this particular exam, I'm going to lean towards people that are already in the construction world. Maybe you want to go into project management, or maybe you're in a discipline that works on a wide variety of things. I myself work in the transmission engineering world in the utility industry, and there are many people that go into construction because it does touch upon a lot of different areas that we do as transmission engineers. But I myself actually took the geotech depth exam because I wanted to do more in foundation work and felt like that was a better thing for my career. And as I wanted to know more understanding of that, because I felt like it was going to help my career out. So anyway, we covered pass rates, we covered the specification, we covered why you should be taking this thing. And I think that's going to be it. So if you have any questions about this particular depth exam, please let me know. Shoot me an email, isaac@civilengineeringacademy.com. And if you need any more tips and advice, including a full-blown course on passing these things, check us out at civilengineeringacademy.com, or our course, the Ultimate Civil PE Review Course, which is at civilpereviewcourse.com as well. Anyway, we're excited for you. Taking this is a long journey. It doesn't matter if it's your first time or your fifth time taking this exam. We're going to be here to help you every step of the way and encourage you to do so. So you can get there. I promise you can do this. Construction depth exam is a good one. So definitely check it out. Anyway, hopefully these tips helped you as we went to a deep dive into the construction depth exam. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.